Hello YouTube, we are A&D Reactions. My name is Alexander,
And I'm Daquan.
and today we are doing a My Happy Marriage Season 2 discussion. Previously, we tried to record episodes on episodes 1, 2, and 3, but we've had technical difficulties, so we decided to just sort of share our thoughts with you and then show what we thought about it, and sort of include the proper 3 episodes.
Yeah, so we didn't give you too much of our thoughts on episode 1, but we wish we had actually gotten we wish we had actually had audio for that recording. But we were absolutely livid with the first episode. Probably see that in our second episode reaction, but when we met Kudo's mother, Kyoka's mother, we were just mad because she was just spitting venom the entire time to Mio. Mio had to build up saying, whether she doesn't like me, is this going to be an issue for Kyoka, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, oh, she's all in her head. She's thinking too much about it. And as soon as she steps into the door, she just starts berating Mio. I'm just like, oh my goodness. I'm like, she actually had a reason to worry, and the mother is just absolute trash.
And then in lieu of that, we had actual rage issues with the technical problems.
Yes. But it was a fun episode. We wound up going on a lot of like interesting rants and thinking about the power dynamic, thinking who actually ran the house. We made some probably not so funny jokes.
They were funny.
Funny to us.
Which makes it funny.
Well, yes, but yeah. So it was a fun episode. It was also interesting noting that so much of this area where Kudo is from is very Western. Like the buildings are very like castle European-esque. Made us think about their family looking very European-esque.
Yeah, whenever we saw his sister, Kyoka's sister, you notice how blonde she was and how her eyes are almost blue, and she was actually very tall. So it just struck me, they had to be at least mixed in some regard, because there's no way they look Japanese, and then usually you could argue maybe that's just art style, but then you look at Mio, who is pretty traditionally Japanese, who is from a very traditional Japanese family, the Usuba family. So it makes you think it has to be intentional in some regard.
Yeah, and then we just tried to record our reactions to episode 3 that also had audio issues. Hopefully this right here does not continue because it seems like the audio issues only come with My Happy Marriage. But hopefully episode 4 you'll actually see a full reaction.
It is the Usuba curse, evidently.
Apparently. But yeah, it was a good episode. It was interesting seeing what these demons actually were like, and that these demons weren't like grotesqueries as we were thinking. The demons were actually humans transformed into demons. We finally confirmed what the actual cult's name was. They were the Gifted Communion. I didn't think that was actually what they were called, but that's what they're called.
On an interesting note, the demons look very much like Oni. So I can't help but wonder, was that the original term in Japanese? Because as you've been able to tell, we've been watching in English. Oftentimes, Oni is translated into demon. So that could be a case, or it could just be they have been superficially resemble demons when they superficially resemble Oni, not demons. And that's why they look like that. But both choices are options.
Yeah, so this episode was kind of interesting seeing all of that. There's some mystical aspects to it. We were trying to figure out that there were some things where we always thought all the noble and like high class families were all with powers, but one of the cult members kind of pointed out to us that the ability to use powers and have these special abilities can be decoupled from wealth in this world. Because we were always kind of coupled it with that ability to fight grotesqueries and have supernatural abilities, and that's not necessarily the case. So a lot of these factors that Kudo actually has, all 3 in terms of privilege, is pretty much like they can be decoupled. You can have status and money without necessarily having supernatural abilities, or you can have the supernatural abilities and status and not necessarily have the money. So for him to have all 3, and then pointing that out, showed us made us think a little bit more like, oh, so these can actually be decoupled in this world.
Which raises the question then, what purpose do you want to have supernatural abilities? Because right now the main ability seems to be fighting grotesqueries. But the sole exception of Mio's, I believe, dream speaking, or dream walking, whatever it's called, because that was specifically pointed out as an ability that isn't fighting them. Which raises the other question though, are there other abilities like that aren't necessarily geared toward fighting? And would they also be just as desired?
Yeah, and then one of the things we're talking about too is some of the not short-sighted, but trying to figure out the full extent of Mio's powers were. because there's a clear disadvantage where she's physically vulnerable when she uses her, I think it's dream sight.
No, spirit sight is what she wanted to have, but she didn't have. So it's like dream seeing or something.
It's dream something.
It's dream something.
You wouldn't believe we actually watched the show, but we watched the show, but just bear with us.
It's dream something.
Yes, but when she uses her power, she's very vulnerable, which our cousin points out. And then we're just thinking about, well, what is that like? What is the thing is if she has to be physically next to that person or touching that person? Because the only 2 times we see her use it was when she was trying to rescue Kudo, and then also when she's trying to rescue the lady's son in this episode, and she has to physically touch him while she's like there in the room. And then we started going on a tangent, thinking about, well, that power can be pretty broken, where you can terrorize someone in their sleep, kind of mentally like debilitate them. And I said, well, then we also realized that Kudo has ridiculous amounts of spiritual abilities. He has fire powers, thunder powers. He has the ability to make barriers. He can also use actual fire and ice. And we're just like, and potentially telekinesis as well, from one of the battles he had with one of the cultists.
Yeah, because they shot a bunch of like mud rocks at him, and he just stopped them, and without a barrier. While it is possible that the barrier was invisible, and it was just from his perspective, but it then raises the question: why was it ever visible in the first place?
Yeah. So it's just like, now imagine what the child would be in terms of having the ability to beat you down physically, but then also terrorize you in your sleep. If the dream power can actually be used almost like on a satellite basis, where you can basically just go into the dreamscape and then still terrorize that person without physically being there. Be quite diabolical, quite frankly.
Terrorize them in life, terrorize them in a sleep, terrorize them probably in death afterwards. Like, you can't escape. Once you die, I'm going into your dreams from the dead and then torment you then.
Yeah, it was an interesting thought process we were going through, trying to figure out like how powerful that child would be in terms of like being able to just supplant entire empire. But it's a fun show. We absolutely love it. We know there's a lot of people sleeping on this series, but we're hoping that other people can hang out with us and watch it too. So hopefully you'll catch us on episode 4. I'm not sure if there's anything else that Alex wanted to add to this recap.
No, I think that's about it.
Cool. Well, hopefully we'll see you in episode 4. And pray for us that we don't have any other audio issues. And then follow us, comment, subscribe below, and then also hop into the Patreon if you want to support us and also interact with us more directly. So we'll see you on the next time and hang out with you again. Later.
Well,